Good morning, everybody. We are here today. It is Wednesday morning, and we are doing Scale with Strategy as we always do every Wednesday. And my name is Elizabeth McFadden. I'm the CEO and Director of Brand Strategy at Novella Brand House.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm April Beach, CEO and founder of the Sweet Life Company and host of the Sweet Life Entrepreneur Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah. So today we're going to have a conversation around never competing on price and other valuable lessons. And I actually wrote about this at the end of January. And we do an e-blast twice a month, and we talk about branding topics, we talk about marketing, always kind of things that are happening in the industry or things that clients are bringing to my attention or just questions that I'm getting a lot. And one of the things that I addressed was competing on price and how you don't want to do that and all of that. And how that came about was I had read an article on LinkedIn by a man named Andrew Clarke. And he wrote this really interesting story about Little Caesars. And April, do you remember Little Caesars? Are you familiar with Little Caesars?
Is that like the old pizza place?
Yes. Well, it's
Yes.
actually, they're still around.
Oh,
But it's interesting that you say that. You're like, oh, the old pizza place, because they were, I think they started like in the mid 80s. And so they were really big in the like late 80s, 90s. And you probably remember the commercials they had, like the little Roman Caesar guy. Yes. And he was always, and it always ended with like, yeah, pizza. Because their whole thing was, it was cheap pizza. Okay. It was not gourmet pizza, but they didn't try to sell it that way. They're like, look, we're cheap pizza. We like are mass manufacturer. We have these small little stores that all you could do was carry out. So they didn't focus on, dining in or anything like that. But it was all around, hey, if you've got like, a football team to feed, or you've got a bunch of friends over, or it's like a little kid birthday party, or maybe you're a poor college student and it's all about, as my son says, who's in college, he's always talking about, cost per calorie, which just cracks me up. But, that's like a finance major in college would talk about. Anyway, but they knew that about themselves. And so they're like, okay, we're not going to, we're cheap, but we're not going to compete on price. We're going to really, talk about our brand, build up this brand. And so they had these really awesome commercials, and their whole brand was like this, like super kind of like zany. And their tagline was pizza, because it was always buy one, get one. So you always got two pizzas, right? Remember all that? Okay. So they're doing that. They're building their brand, creating awesome awareness. Again, they're a cheap pizza, but they're not competing on price, right? They're talking about like really what made them unique, which was this like funny, zany brand. And like almost like, okay, when is our product, like when does it fit into your life, right? And they always talked about that, and they were memorable, right? They really did a great job of building brand awareness. So when you thought about, I get this big group of people to feed, what am I going to pizza, Little Caesars. So, but things only last for so long, right? Because competition happens. And I think we all experience this as business owners, as companies that are scaling. You're going to ride that hockey stick. Okay. You're going to have incredible growth. You're going to have incredible success. But if you've run a business for any amount of time, you know that it's not like you just get to the end and win, right? Running a business is continually playing a game. And the end, or the finish line, is constantly moving, right? Something is always happening. So what happened to Little Caesars was in the late 90s, not only like other competitors were like figuring out Little Caesars and kind of their business model, and they were replicating it. And then they were also competing with, so, they had like direct competitors, right? But then they also had indirect competitors that now they're competing with. And they were competing with like supermarket pizzas, like frozen pizzas that were cheap, that were good, that, people didn't have to go to Little Caesars to have like lots of pizza for cheap. They also started competing against this kind of whole concept of fast casual that became really big. And so anyway, all these things started happening. And instead of, really focusing on, okay, what is it about our brand that people relate to, that were like we solve a pain point for them, or maybe, okay, maybe our audience is getting their information in different places, showing up in different places. Instead, they said, oh my gosh, we've got to just cut marketing, or we just need to, it's just, we're not going to really focus on our brand anymore and what makes us special and what people relate to, which is like the zany, funny, all that. We're just going to compete on price. We're a cheap pizza. We're just going to compete on price. And basically, what the case study kind of showed is that did not work for them. As soon as they got away from what made them special, and really always keeping their brand awareness high, by cutting their marketing, dollars, and their just kind of cutting strategy, they lost market share. And so it took them about 15 years to sort of get that back and to learn, like, okay, we can't compete on price. It's just a race to the bottom, which, April, is why you were saying, you're like, oh, wait, are they still around? So that's what we're talking about. I want to share that's kind of what we're talking about today, because in a down market, and, we're in this, like, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Like, all these things that are happening. But what I do see is some industries are in a recession. Some industries, they are down, maybe some are down as much as 50%, while others are, they were down end of last year, but now they're back up again. But, at some point in your business, you're going to hit a down market. You're going to hit a down period. Sales may drop for one reason or another. And the inclination is to, okay, well, we just gotta focus on price because we're not getting sales. And so, you don't want to focus on price. You don't want to compete on price. And honestly, this is a good lesson, down market or not, because it's always a race to the bottom. You can't differentiate yourselves on price alone. And April, I'm sure you've probably seen this. We're working with different clients over the years. They're like desperate for sales. And it's like, okay, can we just do a 2-for-1? What kind of deal can we do? Instead of thinking about, well, where am I not marketing that might make more sense?
Yeah, and also, in addition to that, people know, it's like you can smell blood in the water like a shark. When a company is desperate to meet sales and you can feel that desperation, it doesn't go across, it doesn't come across well. But I love how you said, like, racing to the bottom, and like, you can't get any below the bottom, right? Like, there's nowhere to go once you hit rock bottom. And we have seen that in the expert consulting, service-based industry space. We have really seen that a lot, especially when so many more service-based industries have been growing. So more consulting businesses, more coaches, more speakers, more self-published authors, right? So we've been seeing these micro industries kind of grow around, and what happens is that many of them do compete on price rather than leaning into what they do well, even if what they do well is for a very small group of people. So we've seen a lot of dropping out on pricing, for sure, that really affects the brand and the brand integrity, and that kind of that shark, people smell blood in the water. These people are not doing well. And then we also see them trying to expand their reach and not really understand their audience. And so instead of saying, hey, listen, we might have 2,000 people on our email list, let's really hone in on what those 2,000 people need, and building deeper relationships with the people that are the leads that are in their ecosystem, networking more with the people that they've already begun to network with. We see them stretching thin and trying to reach out broader to generate more new leads, which obviously, we always want new leads in our business, when in fact, though, they should also be doing what we call internal marketing and really doubling down on the people that have already noticed their brand and interacted with their brand in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, focus on what makes you different, you unique. Focus on what people love about you. So just what you were saying, like those people that are already fans or already customers, even if they're not customers yet, but they're on your potential customer list, but they're so close to buying your product. Maybe they're just not quite down that sales journey yet where they're ready to buy, but they're like right there. But focus on what they love about you and the value that you bring to them. And you were saying that sometimes consultants, coaches, service providers just want to compete on price. And here's the thing: if your customer definitely understands your value and perceives you as a high value to them, I didn't say high cost, I just said a high value to them. Okay, they will not only maybe pay up, okay, or they'll price isn't necessary. They're not like shopping you between you and your competitors, but they can also look at your product and think, well, I really value this high, but this is priced the lowest of everybody. And it's a disconnect for them. And then they start questioning, well, wait, okay, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe this product isn't as good as I think it is. So, all just reasons why competing on price, one, even if for the moment you're the least expensive, okay, somebody else is going to come in and undercut you. I mean, they just will. That is what will happen. So you can't even if that's your strategy, you better have a long-term strategy beyond that, because somebody's going to come in and undercut you, and now you're not going to be the cheapest option, right? But the other thing is, it can really hurt your brand, like you were saying, your brand integrity, and just doesn't match the value that you've sort of been positioning. But they're like, oh wait, this is too cheap for what I think I'm getting. The second thing is really understanding your customers. Again, so sort of again, under these lessons of never compete on price and other valuable lessons, one of the other lessons here, and especially out of the Little Caesars case study, is know your customers. Know what they want, and if like, and what about it is that they're connecting, and then don't leave that. Now, I'm not saying if it's a situation where you've got to maybe cut some spending, I'm not saying don't ever touch marketing. Okay, there might be some places within your marketing budget that you might need to cut because it's not working, it's not performing for you, right? But don't just completely do away with that. I think sometimes people are like, oh my God, sales are down, we gotta cut, right? Well, if sales are down, okay, that means you're not getting the traffic in, you're not getting the leads in, something is not driving them. So you still have to look at where are my customers and where do I need to be speaking with them? And then thinking too, if you do cut marketing, right? Just kind of like what Little Caesars did. They like cut their budget. They were just going to compete on price. Well, they lost, millions of dollars because now they weren't staying top of mind with customers. Somebody else was moving right in there. And so you always have to be driving brand awareness in one way or another. That doesn't always have to be paid. It can be organic. It can be a number of activities, that you can be doing it sort of under your marketing umbrella. But you may be able to cut marketing spend, but you cannot cut the activities that drive brand awareness for you. April, what do you want to add in there?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And yes, I think being creative with marketing too, and more relational marketing too, is something if a business is experiencing some sort of a downturn, or sales are being affected, or maybe perhaps it's the economy. I think there's so many other even non-paid sweat equity marketing options that companies just kind of need to go back, almost maybe even to some grassroots marketing concepts that we used to use before all the ins and outs of online advertising really started getting very intuitive. And so I think that there's so many other ways where we can deepen that relationship with the right audience. And so I think that's just a really, really good point that you had made. And businesses should never, ever compromise on price because of everything you said, but also it's going to they're not going to rebound from it because their operational costs can't sustain it, even in most cases, even if they cut it down to the bottom. So it's never a good venture to take, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will end this on this. It's about creativity and about good strategy and in being creative in where you are, and just always make sure that you're out there with the right message, with the right creative, and
Mhm.
being creative about how you're reaching your audience. All right,
Yeah.
we'll leave it there today, you guys. Thank you so much. If you want to catch any part of this or re-listen, check it out on YouTube on the Novella Brand House YouTube channel. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.